welcome back to another devlog. This is week 91. So we'll start off here. This week I was scheduled to put another a weekend to finish off this mech prototype. Get it to a state where I could actually implement it in gameplay without major issues and mostly all the functionalities there. So picking up off from last week, my first major task was to start working on shooting, like getting the projectile stuff working. So at the start of the week, I had to get the actual projectile aim alignment right for the for the um, for the projectile. So it was a bit tricky, but I had to line up the actual projectile spawn point correctly with the end of the barrel, and I had to do a lot of testing, and I came up with something that actually looked pretty good in the end. Not 100%, but like what the requirement was is that when you aim, it aligns with the barrel, and also when you move, that it stays aligned with the barrel, right? It doesn't drift too far to when you actually fire. The projectile doesn't misalign with the barrel, like on movement. So got that finally working, and it's a different solution coming up with the versus the AI versus character controller. Like the mech has his own kind of custom solution, but it got acceptable results, so I went with that. Um, as soon as I got the aim position working, I went and fine-tuned the actual projectile. So I was kind of trying to decide which. Let's turn off the sound here. It's a little distracting. I was trying to decide which one to use. I had looked at my package and like which projectile to use. In the end, I decided to use the rifle projectile and just color it differently, and then size it up so it looks a little bit juicier, meatier, and then change the color, and then tweaked all the values to kind of customize it to like a powerful auto cannon, and I was happy with the results. And then I put a bunch of niceties on the firing process, like the sound effect you just heard here. And I had to do something a little different for the sound effect in Fmod. I had to figure out. I've done loops before, but I had to do my clip. I kind of had to learn how to do like a different kind of loop in Fmod where it will, depending on, it controls by a parameter, like, but it should be able to like, it just should be able to fire off like one shot or in multiple shots, and if you're holding it, it just kind of loops in a certain area on the clip, and it until you release the trigger. So, and kind of the same thing for the aim. There's like a sound effect. It's a little different, but like combining the 3 different clips together to where you engage the aim. It starts the first clip and then runs the loop in the middle, and then when you release, it'll play the end clip. So a little bit of new stuff in Fmod on how to do that, but got that looking good, and then added the proper feedbacks for like like a slight camera shake on movement, and then even more of a camera shake on firing, and controller haptic feedback, and so that was looking pretty good. Pretty happy with the results going forward. That was the Tuesday, and let's see here. On Wednesday, I was kind of running into an issue where I was kind of, every controller is different, but what I was running into was this little issue where if you're approaching like a slight ledge, like this sidewalk or something, the controller would actually get stuck on there and not be able to move forward. It was kind of weird. So I had issues with AI getting stuck on ledges and kind of hanging on ledges a little bit, and then it would pop up. It wasn't like a smooth just pop over the ledge. That's how it should be. So I kind of had to once and for all, I kind of had to dive into vectors code and kind of really understand what's going on there and kind of build visualization tools around um, on what's going on with the debug. I wonder if I can actually get the tool. I kind of had to put in these little gizmos here to kind of understand how the system's working, like how it actually detects like an edge of the lines and spheres, so I can visually identify. Because it was like this complicated mess, like a lot of different parameters going on in this algorithm, and how does it actually know and detect an edge in order to um, um, in order to step up nicely. Once I had this my understanding sorted out, I could kind of understand how the algorithm works to detect a ledge in order to smoothly transition the rigid body, apply a rigid body Y up force in a smooth way. So it's I got it working a little bit, but the applying the up force was very, it would cause a hang on the edge. So I kind of had to give the vector algorithm a little bit of loving, a little bit of fine tuning, and that meant kind of understanding how it actually did its job, how it actually worked. But once I had the understanding, I could actually apply an overwrite to my character and then make it fill the requirements of just, you know, getting over a ledge, and not getting not getting hung up on the ledge. So now if I ever run into issues with other AIs on little ledges, they're getting caught or whatever, or they're hopping up, now I can kind of go in and apply these gizmos, and it won't be an issue now that I understand how the algorithm works. So took some time to do that. Um, and at this point, I was kind of saying, do I want to, it's looking pretty good. Do I want to continue with this mech prototype? It's like Tuesday or Wednesday, and I could move on to the boss. I have a whole bunch of list of other things I want to do. Do I put the rest of the week into this mech, or do I move on to the next prototype right now? And I decided that let's just put some more time into this mech. There's a few more things I want to take care of. I think that'll be a good use of this time for this week, and then next week I can start on the first boss. Um, so on Wednesday or Thursday, I was trying to do some experimentation with the actual. I wanted to get a spinning. This is the end result, which I'm happy with. I wanted to get this sort of thing going on, and the problem was the mesh they gave me. This gun and this barrel was all one piece, so you can't really tell the single mesh piece to rotate in any sort of way. And um, so I went into I did some experimentation because I really wanted to iron out my understanding, kind of like I did with the curb. I wanted to know okay, if I because now we're dealing with skin mesh renderers. If um, I'd done something with this gate or whatever, which is a static object, like this lamp here. If I wanted to go in and change something about this in Blender, I could easily do that. If I wanted to change something with the mesh, I wanted to remove this, I could go into Blender, remove these vertices and faces, and then import it back, and then apply the material to it, and it'll work, right? Because this is static. it's not tied to any sort of armature or bones or have any weights that's applied to it. And you can do that no problem. But the issue is, and I've seen with my character controller, like something like this that's tied to an actual armature, and then um, you have your meshes. It's all very closely tied together. The skin mesh render. If you look at the transform, it's down here. They don't. It's like a different system when you do skin mesh renders. Like if I move this transform, it's not going to move anything about the object. Like it's all tied to the actual rig, and it's deformed by the bones of the rig. So I did some experimentation, and I imported this whole FBX that they gave me into Blender, and you know, and went and figured out how to separate. Just select the barrel and make it its own object, right? Separate, So now it's two different objects. But the problem was when I imported this new model, I tried several different ways, like in order to first way was to go into the actual mesh here and then swap out the mesh, but that didn't work. The actual If I just swapped out the mesh, it wouldn't align it to where it was. Like there's something like with the export to Blender and the import back to Unity, the actual mesh that was saved, you can't just swap out the mesh. It's like in a different place. It's not where from where you exported it. So that was really not. And then I tried something like, okay, let's just swap in from the new FBX. Let's just swap in place the actual game object with the mesh. So I tried several different things, and nothing. When you're dealing with skin mesh renders, you can't do that either. You can't say, oh, here's the game object for the other FBX. I'm just going to put it here and tell it to go to the root bone. It's just in a different position. It doesn't. Everything's broken. It's like that's not the way to do it. Like it really comes down to the only way you could actually do it um, is actually replacing just doing a whole rig replace. Like you're replacing this armature bone game object root structure, and you're replacing the structure of the actual skin mesh renderers, like just like a one-to-one, like I done with my character controller. And the problem with that is like anything dependent that's tied, let's just say you had like colliders or gun attachments or whatever in the structure, you have to go and make sure all those things are replaced or put back in to where they were in order. So it's like in order to, you have to do a, it's like if you change anything about the mesh, you're not even changing the armature, but if you change anything in the mesh, like if you want to modify the skin mesh renderers, you are essentially facing a everything that's dependent on it. You have to replace the entire skin mesh renderer structure and like pretty much rebuild the controller, and that's the facts of life. So that's kind of like what I understand in my experimentation. If it's like if you it's like a high cost thing. It's just, so one of the things you have to live with working with this Unity system or whatever, like think long and hard and careful about um, having to modify not only the armature but like the skin meshes at all. Like if you do that, you can't easily swap in. There's no way to easily edit this once it's in SVX form. So I've tried a bunch of stuff, a bunch of experimentation to try to see if I could solve this problem of being able to easily modify a skin mesh render, and it's just not one of those things that is like easily supported. So I kind of understand that. Kind of gave up on for the time being on getting something like this going because it's like I can't just swap in a skin mesh render and a separate static object. It just but I kept poking at it, and eventually like what I figured out was that this actual gun while it is a skin mesh render, it's not getting manipulated by the bones very much. This whole thing is just, it acts like a static, just along with the barrel. The only thing that was getting manipulated, there was this little cord in the back, like depending on where the bones are, the cord would kind of make sure that it deforms and attaches to the body correctly. And I said, because at this point I was messing around with aim previously, and I was like, you know, I was thinking like, how can I just attach something? Oh, that's fine. I was saying, I was doing some testing, and it's like, how can I, because I try to attach the projectile. Um, where was it? The uh, shooter weapon. I tried to attach the projectile in it. You see how it does it in aim, and I always figured it was like, oh, it's off aligned because of the IK, the aim rig. And I did my best, and I got a good solution working. But I found that if you are attaching a object, let's just say, if you attach it directly to the bone with like a 0, 0, it will align to that bone's position regardless of the actual IK overrides, which was very interesting because it's kind of said like, why then is this certain projectile off a line? Well, I did some experimenting. Like, yes, if you put um, a game object mounted at a 0, 0 point of the board, it will follow exactly, um, regardless of uh, IK overrides. The only issue is that if you extend it out from that point, it will misalign. It will not. Um, it will not. Let's see if I can actually select this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you look at the so I actually what I did was I took from my work that I already did in the blender, I separated out just the gun housing and the barrel as a static object, and I went and mounted it exactly in the same place as the skin mesh renderer gun. And then I just hid the skin mesh renderer, and it looks, it's in the exact same position. It has the exact same effect, so it follows the bone exactly as if it would have mounted on it, and that's how I was able to get this final result um, of the gun barrel housing and the barrel separated. Now, and they follow the bone exactly, and there's no off alignment. So I learned a bit of something that what you can and can't do, and this solution worked out to where now I can apply rotation separately as two different objects. And so, yeah, in the end, it was a lot of experimenting, like trying to find a method to easily modify skin mesh renderers. And now my understanding is like, yeah, it's not easily done. But this solution here, understanding that, you know, you can mount directly to the armature rig without any weird IK offsets, like this, if you do it right, and then you can get something like this. So it's just a learning experience, and it took like it took more time than I wanted to, but it really kind of ironed out my understanding now, like certain tools that are at my disposal, and like certain solutions now that I can employ, what I can and can't do very easily. So now that I have a stronger, it's just building my experience and knowledge, and now I get a result like this. So after I got this work and this concept, this theory, this science done, I went and did the next step, applied the rotation and little niceties. One thing I did, I went into the barrel and just kind of got some sort of like programming done to where when you're firing, it'll have this like it'll increase this heat, I guess, this heat value. And what it will do, it'll eventually take on this like emissive glow, I think. If I can get out of the light, it'll kind of bring up this emissive, kind of like, it's kind of a subtle thing, but I think the subtle things matter to where it's like a subtle detail to where the actual um, I could make it a little bit more obvious, but the gun barrel kind of glows a little bit. I could do a little bit more, but it kind of looks like it's getting warmed up to like a brighter the more you shoot it. And it's just one of those things that you can actually do. And then after you stop shooting for a while, it kind of fades out. But it's just all these things that are possible. So, and then I can tie that directly to the sound. Oh, I already talked about the sound for the rotating. But yeah, so that was spent a bit of time on that, but it gives me a little bit more knowledge in order to move forward in the future. You know, how to apply um, changes in a certain way. So after that, I went and applied functionality that I kind of already had with like energy controller. So I kind of reused my energy controller, and this is just basically to make sure that you can't just pull the trigger, hold the trigger down, and just spam everything endlessly. Like there is some sort of like limit of like how much you can fire at one time. So reuse my energy controller, and then the functionality around that, it kind of taps through. But I kind of broke the paradigm to where I had to kind of work in a new system to where to make sure that when the energy runs out, the gun sounds all the systems align where the gun sound stops and the animation changes over. Like the whole system's aligned depending on not only if you're just releasing the trigger, but now if the system is saying, hey, you're out of ammo. And then I added a little sound effect, that kind of says, it's very subtle, but it's like, yeah, little, that you're out of ammo. And one of the things, I also tied it into the actual on-screen UI. There's something wrong with the edges of the UI, on-screen edges of the UI, but it does show that little red dot in the center. So that's good enough for now, but it kind of gives you a visual that you're low on energy, and got that working. And then I think, yeah, like the last end of the week, I was working on health functionality. So now I was working with these little shooter testers, and basically, so this little shooter guy will shoot me, and what we're looking at here now, we're making sure that the health controller is working when you take damage. And so a couple things I implemented. I have this this thing where you're taking damage. If it hits a certain amount of threshold, I do the same thing like with my player. It's just a lot of reusing solutions that I've already solved before. Like if you take a hit, depending on the direction of the hit, it'll play like a certain animation, and that's cool. And then also something else I did was there was a stumble animation that I wanted to use, so I kind of implemented like the animation to fire off when kind of like the heat of my gun. There's like this accumulation that occurs, like a damage accumulation. So if there's some logic in there. So it's like if you take enough damage and it doesn't decay or dissipate after a while, and then you go past a certain health threshold, you'll actually execute this. The stumble animation, pretty much. It kind of stuns you a little bit for like a second or two, and then you're back up again. I thought that was a nice touch. It's just like using all the animations that I have that are available to me. So there's that functionality, and just kept going with that. And then I also employed like as you see here, like VFX stuff. So like kind of employing the same idea as my character controller, where depending on your like damage overall percentage, it goes through and kind of turns on and off effects like different VFX effects. So like the first stage, you'll see just like this one little spark coming out, and then it'll play like a spark sound effect. And then second stage, it's like, okay, and there's another spark and maybe a little fire, a little smoke, and then it plays like a very subtle fire crackling effect or whatever. And then I think it's like what was it, stage 3 um stage 3, you're really starting to smoke up. Over here. Yeah, you got like a big smoke effect, another fire, another spark, and then also you have this little kind of like little damage alarm going on, like you are about to die, like so you're really hurting right now. And that was all looking good, and that, as you regain health, it actually goes away and turns off the effects properly, and it's all good. The other thing, and I think the final thing I worked on this week and kind of finalize the prototype, is the actual death process. And sort of the same thing when you take a hit, and now it's calculated because there's only two animations. If you take a hit from the front, it'll play one animation. If you take the final hit from the back, it'll play another. And I kind of had to align and have like a coroutine basically to kind of hold off like the is dead flag, because I had this little when you take your final hit, it will it will not immediately kill you, but it'll execute this VFX. It'll start executing. You're technically dead right now, but it'll start executing this VFX, and it takes a second for it to play out. But as soon as it's finished doing an explosion, then I can set the flag, which will trigger the death animation. So it's very, you get this whole, yeah, you get the feedback, the camera shake, the controller vibration, the VFX, and then finally the death animation, and then you can set your flag, and then everything else is. So it's a whole coroutine timing process in order to get this right. And also, the sound effects is right, and then just making sure everything else. There's a lot of ironing out, sorting out, fine tuning, tweaking, going through this process, testing, polishing, until it finally get the final result you want. So that's the final death animation or whatever, and he's pretty much toast. And at this point in the week, it's just like, what comes after this? Now, I still had a couple things um, that I kind of wanted. Like, I could keep continuing with this prototype, um, on to the next week and so on. But there was only a handful of things that I kind of decided to defer for a later time, like when I'm doing um, gameplay testing. And one of the things is wow, I'm way down there. That's crazy. One of the things is exiting the mech. I usually steps out there. I'll just leave it up there. Okay, so one of the things is like exiting the mech, either on death, or I was thinking like when the mech dies, I could actually do a physics ragdoll off of it in whatever direction it falls, and then like get up. But that was kind of like a bridge too far. Like I'll probably do physics ragdoll and then return get up for other things like the bros prototype, and then I can come back and employ here when necessary. Right now I just have a ragdoll to death, and taking it to the next step, like that'd probably be good eventually, but right now, so there's like exiting the vehicle in death and then exiting the vehicle manually. Like I was thinking about doing some sort of eject, like either you hold it to like exit normally, or you hit the B button 3 times and you do like a jump off, like like eject, like you exit the vehicle, and then when that happens, the mech returns to a toilet or whatever. So that exit process, I kind of put that on the list of like things to do at a later time. So they're on my list, but just not right now. Um, One of the things also I was kind of messing around with. I was getting into the last thing this week. I was looking into because I'm gonna have to do like the work with it's called the legs animator package, and basically what it does it it helps like AI controllers or any sort of controller avoid some sort of you see how when I turn around, like the feet kind of slide. That's like a little detail. I wish it wasn't there, but what it does, it makes sure that the feet kind of, when you do something like this, the feet kind of automatically reposition themselves, like they step. They don't just slide around. The same thing when you're moving. You don't get this like you don't get like a sliding effect sometimes. Um, I was trying to address this main issue that I was seeing where when I'm doing strafing, like in particular, if you get it at a certain angle, let's turn off this sound for now. If you get the aim and the walking at a certain angle, you get something like this, which just doesn't look very good. And I was trying to figure out how this is happening like this. Like this doesn't look right, right? It's kind of like at this diagonal, and I was kind of like, how is Invector handling this? And I really dove into, because it looks like it's like doing some sort of IK, right? And this is where AI was no help, like the AI, the chatbot was no help. Like, it's like, why does it do something? Like, how do I fix this issue? So I was really looking in the code and trying to figure out, like, I should understand this, but now, like, how is Invector handling, like, the upper body rotating to the aim point, but also the feet, staying on the actual move trajectory. How does that work? And I was looking for like animation IK, like is it controlling the spine? There's really no IK that I could see. Like, so how is it doing this? Well, the final answer was basically if you look at the animator and the actual animations for these different um, for these different um, strife states, you have these Cartesian 1, 2, 3, 4, and if you actually look at the animations, you'll see that it's not like when you're walking forward. Yeah, when you're walking forward, the torso is pointing forward, and then so on and so forth. When you're walking left, let's see if I can get this over here. When he's walking left, you can see that his torso is actually rotated right. So it's not that there's like an IK override. It's actually the animation is doing what the animation is doing. So the fault actually is actually what's happening. The blend tree, it doesn't have information for these diagonal paths. So it tries to blend the forward, backward, right, and left animation as best as it can, and the final result, um, and this is just what they provide. The final result is actually subpar in the case of like, moving diagonally or a certain way. You get this kind of like, this is actually like the blend. Like this is the blend. So the actual solution would be to actually go into my U-motion animation and actually input the actual, like, kind of make a custom animation for the actual case of moving diagonally. So you don't get this hopping, but you get more of like a blend for the input case of diagonal, like where it's more of a stride instead of a. And so I thought maybe like the foot animator could solve this problem like that I was having. So I was messing around. This is like my first pass at foot animation, the legs animator, because it has some cool stuff. Like, and I'm definitely gonna use it for the first boss because it has like a spider or whatever, like a insect leg, and that'll be cool. Um, but I tried using it here for a biped, and I really kind of had mixed results. It was a first pass at it, and the cool thing is it does kind of solve, especially for idle, it does kind of solve the sliding problem. But I was having kind of rough results with the actual movement. I think I'd maybe just employ it for idle um, on this, but turn it, make sure to turn it off for movement because I was getting this really like the out of the box animations. It's very smooth and it's very nice, but once you employ like leg gluing or the leg animator component in general, the movement of the legs feel very very rough, very choppy, a little bit jerky, and other things like the actual the foot colliders that trigger off these sounds, those don't work anymore. So there's several issues that I decided to just kind of scrap for now. It was a good kind of little experiment, first foray into legs animator, and I'll do more for the boss and more understanding. But right now, it was the legs animator is kind of not solving the problem that I wanted to, and it was kind of getting in the way. So I just removed that for now. Yeah, I got a little bit of leg sliding, but I actually understand how to solve this one strafing issue now, and I can actually do this for the character as well. Like do a custom animation override to actually get an animation for these diagonal states, so the blend is not so bad. So that's really um, all I have to say for the end of this week. Um, at the very end of the week, I had set up the actual the next stage. So I committed. I'm happy with this prototype where it is, the place it is now, and I committed everything back to main. And now I'm setting up, and I spent a little bit of time kind of like clearing the table and saying, okay, last prototype, first boss, and kind of revisiting my initial conceptions of how the actual boss fight will work. And I think I actually laid out a pretty decent starting plan to start next week on the boss prototype. It's just like this prototype. There's a lot of work here to be done for sure. It seems like a lot, but when you get down like 1 to 2 weeks, you really got a lot done in the prototype, and it's actually. I remember I started this mech 2 weeks ago, and I literally had nothing here, and now. Putting together a lot of solutions and pieces that I've had previously into this whole comprehensive thing. 2 weeks, like I have this basically fully functional mech controller with shooting, firing, taking damage, and everything like that. So what is possible? It's this prototype like 2 weeks ago, it seemed very daunting. Like there was a couple new things that I had to solve and like new systems and a bit of custom solutions, but essentially like 80% of the problems that I solved with like character controllers and movement I had already done before, well before with my character controller. It was just a matter of putting together the pieces and not so much solving new problems, but just you know construction of this new controller. And I think I'm pretty happy with the results. So more to come next week, and these are the days where the game is actually really getting exciting, where it's like I'm getting more comments like, oh, that was pretty cool. More interest. It's not just it's moved out of the heavy prototype stage until you're actually getting gameplay things like this where a few people take notice. But um, that's all there is to say this week about it, and I will continue to post for next time. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you later.